those of you who I haven't had a chance to meet, I'm Zinat Ahmad, and I'm with the Atkinson Center. I'm the executive director of 4 people that are actually not possible to direct. But I love them all in bits and pieces. But I want to welcome you back. And this afternoon's first panel is Schools at the Center, Pan-Canadian Actions. So we're joined by a group of leaders from across Canada, from British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Ontario, and Nova Scotia. And they are all engaged in leadership roles in building up early learning and childcare within school systems. So they're going to be sharing examples of what they're doing and what has been successful and possibly what has been challenging as well. We're going to start with Jill Piers from Nova Scotia. Jill is with the Ministry of Education, and she's leading the work around the pre-primary programs that was mentioned earlier today. First piloted in 2013, and now available to all 4-year-old children. So 10 years, pretty amazing. And she will describe some of the core principles of this universally accessible program that is play-based in Nova Scotia. She will be followed by Barb Cardow and Melissa Dirk. Barb is with the region of Waterloo. She's a director, and Melissa manages the before and after school programs in the Waterloo Region District School Boards. Both organizations were involved in the Atkinson Schools at the Center study, also 10 years ago, and along with Ottawa and the Hilton School Board. So they'll share some interesting lessons about what they've learned in building capacity in the community, but also increasing access to thousands of children. They will be followed by Melissa, sorry, it says Melissa, autocorrect, my apologies. Melia Dirk, who is a district vice principal in the Okanagan Similkameen school boards in British Columbia. They have been building seamless day programs, easing the transition for children from kindergarten into after-school programs, and she will also be sharing lessons for growth. And finally, Zeba, Ahmad, who's the Chief Executive Officer of the Saskatoon Public School Foundation. And the foundation has played a really key role in piloting full-day kindergarten programs in an effort to boost literacy skills. It was, they recognized that they were having some challenges around kids' reading abilities, and they have chosen to launch some initiatives where they combine early learning to make it more accessible to more children, and Zeba will be reporting on this initiative too. Please join me in welcoming Jill.
Thank you, everybody. Good afternoon. It's a real honor to be here, actually, to talk about the pre-primary program. So the first thing I would like to acknowledge that Nova Scotia is in Mi'kmaq, the traditional and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Our population is around 1 million. We're just a little bit over that now, I believe. Our founding cultures are Mi'kmaq, Acadians, African Nova Scotians, and Gaels. 40% of our population live in rural areas, and we've seen a significant rise in immigrant families over the last number of years. We have approximately 8,000 births per year, and 1 in 4 of our children live in poverty. So this is just a little snapshot of kind of where we've been, as Zenit referenced earlier. In 2013, our early childhood development services, as it was called then, was moved from Department of Community Services to Department of Education and Early Childhood Development. And around that time, we implemented over 2 years early year centers in 8 of the school regions in the province. And so we did 4 in the first year, and then we did the other 4 in the second year. Those early years centers had 3 components. They had a 4-year-old program, a free 4-year-old program, a family support program, and where there was a need, licensed childcare as well. And that program was evaluated over 5 years, and it established an integrated service delivery model with a play-based program in early childhood. Then in 2017, thanks to a platform promise by someone who may be in the room, we introduced universal pre-primary for 4-year-olds. So we scaled up the program to a universal early learning program for children who are 4. So just getting back to the early years programs a little bit. So they were all located in schools, providing a stable platform which allowed integration and serving more families effectively in the community. As has been said a couple of times today, schools are in communities, so they're the best places to provide such services. It also increased collaboration and access to services for children and families. And I should reference that the early years centers were strategically located in places where there were limited services for children and families to access. And so the aim was to improve outcomes for children prenatal to school entry. It was free, as I referenced, 4-year-old program, and had family supports and licensed childcare. So we created the early years centres built on learnings from Toronto First Duty and from Doveton, Australia. The early years centres were funded by the Margaret and Wallace McCain Family Foundation. And again, I talked about the 5-year evaluation, which we did in collaboration with the Early Childhood Collaborative Research Centre, Jessie Lee McIsaac's group. And we also developed a logic model to help guide that evaluation from no collaboration to full collaboration. So the pre-primary program, as I said, it was introduced in 2017. We implemented it over 4 years, so a phased in approach, and it's been fully implemented since 2020. I should say, in case you're wondering, primary is kindergarten everywhere else in the country except for Nova Scotia. So when I'm talking about primary, it's kindergarten, and of course then pre-primary is pre-kindergarten. So we phased it in over 4 years. We prioritized that phasing starting in 2017. We had, I think it was 16 weeks to get things going for that September. And we looked at, how we prioritized was we looked in communities where there were limited to no resources for children or families, so no childcare, very few family supports. We also identified space in schools, so we needed to look at that. Where can we put these programs? And then we also looked at the early development instrument data for those communities as well. So those were how we prioritized, and we continued to use those 3 criteria each of the following years until we were at the 2021 full implementation. So if you didn't have a pre-primary program, you would by then. So currently, we have pre-primary in 253 school communities, and out of the 8,000 approximately eligible children every year, this year in particular, we have over 6,700 children enrolled in our program, so that's about 83% of eligible children. Again, the program is no fee, it's play-based, and all 4-year-olds in that particular school catchment can attend. It's led by early childhood educators who follow the Nova Scotia Early Learning Curriculum Framework, which is also the framework that is utilized in childcare in Nova Scotia. And it's in all of our 7 regional centres for education, school boards, as well as we have a francophone program. We have a francophone school board as well called Le Conseil Scolaire Acadien Provincial, and there's programs in all of those. We're really proud that our programs are inclusive and respectful of diversity. We welcome all children and families into the school, and something that I often like to reference to. So you come to pre-primary however you are. There is you don't get kicked out. There's no, they don't follow the school code of conduct, because we have a lot of families that come to our programs whose children have unfortunately been asked to leave childcare centers, and that's just not an option in pre-primary. And we work really hard to support educators to support those children and families to attend. The next slide, I won't go into all of the details of all these roles, but basically each of our programs, we typically run about 24 children max, and each of the programs are staffed by a lead and a support early childhood educator. And then we might so 24 with a basically staff to child complement of 1 to 10, and so many of our programs, if they're full, have 3 staff. And we also occasionally will add additional staff to support inclusion if need be. We don't do one-on-one. We have an additional staff for anybody who needs the support. And then there's a pre-primary lead or manager, and so those people are staff that work in the school region, and they are the supervisors of the ECEs that work in the programs. The principal has always been responsible for the health and safety of all the children in their school, but with regards to their involvement with pre-primary, it's been varied, but nothing required. But very soon, the principals will be taking over the role of supervising the early childhood educators that work in the program, and we see that as a really positive step to not only have ECEs having someone on site to supervise them, but it also gives us a sneaky opportunity to help educate principals who may not be familiar with our Nova Scotia Early Learning Curriculum Framework, and we've got a plan for how to do that as well. Those are all regional staff. At the department level where I am, I have 7 pre-primary consultants that report to me. They are pedagogical experts and the best team in all of government. They work all around the province, and as well, and then there's me. So we did come across some challenges to supporting access to pre-primary, initially busing wasn't available to children who attended the pre-primary program, and that proved to be quite a significant barrier for some families. People figured it out, but starting in 2018, we started to implement busing for pre-primary children. We had to figure out buckling in and who's going to do it. Are they on the bus? Are the buckles available on the bus? Those kinds of things. So again, we targeted areas where it was a little easier to implement, saving our largest regional center for education, Halifax, for last. So by 2021, full busing is available. So if you were eligible for busing from primary to 12, you were also eligible in the pre-primary program. And then another need that we saw, because the program runs the school day, that left a gap in time from around 2:30 to 5 where parents were still looking for childcare. So what we implemented from there was called Nova Scotia Before and After program, called NSBAP. And we did that in collaboration with another department, Department of Communities, Culture, Tourism, and Heritage. And that government branch is responsible for recreational programs across the province, so we've got a really great partnership with them. And the other thing that I would mention about that is the BAP program is primarily an outdoor program. It's based on the Let's Get Moving, a physical activity strategy of 2018. And we like to see our children outside as much as possible, and the BAP program is primarily outside. The other thing that I would talk about is that as of 2023, there's about 2,300 spaces available for BAP, and 768 were created this year, with more spaces opening in January of 2024. So we worked into our Canada-wide agreement that the BAP families could access subsidy as well, so some of the families are paying $10 a day or less to attend the BAP program. And the BAP programs can choose to be licensed or not. Some of them are, some of them aren't. The key is, though, they do have to be associated and primarily on site where the pre-primary program is. They share the indoor space. So that's been really a successful, and we put those programs where there's a need. So if we have 10 families calling a school to say, I need after school care, we're gonna go there next. The biggest challenge is finding a partner for sometimes. So I think this is my last slide. So our key learnings for the pre-primary program is that it does provide early learning experience to support that transition to school. It's really helps to ease that transition for children. It helps families and parents become more familiar with school earlier. I think we all know families who have been intimidated by the school system over the years, and this program has really helped to support families to not feel so intimidated. The other thing is that when we first implemented pre-primary, we were with early years, and in October of last year, actually pre-primary moved to our public school branch, Education Innovation Programs and Services, which is really nice. It's allowed us now to, I like to use the word, infiltrate the school system to really spread the word of early learning and childcare. The focus is on outdoor play, as I said, and we really work to support inclusion and diversity. The other things I will say too, the children that go to the pre-primary program technically don't have access to student services and other services that are available to public school students, so like our Schools Plus wraparound support program, but gradually over time, we've had in-kind supports coming from schools as the children become more part of the school family, and it's really helped to ease that transition from pre-primary to primary because the teachers are more familiar with the children's needs. We've got a lot of those supports and things put in place in advance. Children are more familiar with the school routines. And again, we have our 40% of their time is outside. We started that with COVID, and we continued it because it was so successful. And again, it's available to all the children. So that's our pre-primary program in a nutshell. Thank you.
Good afternoon, welcome. My name is Melissa Hilton. I'm the manager of extended day programs with the Waterloo Region District School Board. This is a bit of a full circle moment for me. I was here in 2010 and heard Charles Pascal speak in this very room about the vision of a seamless day for children. So I will be presenting on the implementation of board-operated extended day programs, along with my colleague, Barb Cardow, Director of Children's Services. Barb is our CMSM in Waterloo Region, and we couldn't do our work without her support. So in 2009, Charles Pascal published his report with our best future in mind, implementing full-day learning for 4 and 5-year-olds in Ontario. And with this report came the opportunity for school boards to pilot extended day programs and offer before and after school care for families who need it for a fee. And the Waterloo Region Service System Plan outlines access and affordability in our region as key barriers for families accessing childcare services. So we worked with our research team to collect some data on childcare services in our schools. And the data was depressing. The data told us that only 9% of students had access to childcare services in schools. And the programs that existed had long waiting lists. Many programs could not support the inclusion of children with special education needs due to lack of resources. Programs that did exist existed in affluent communities, high-earning neighborhoods, and entire neighborhoods were underserved for years. They never had childcare programs. So Barb is going to talk a little bit about the partnership and how this idea grew.
Is that the right one?
Just
Oh, the next one. So, yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about the beginnings of this. So, and some of this was discussed this morning. You know, back when the province first announced that school boards would take responsibility for operating before and after school programs, and they would be run by school boards. Both our school boards in Waterloo Region, the Waterloo Region District School Board and the Waterloo Region Catholic School Board, along with my predecessor at the Region of Waterloo Children's Services, really were inspired by Charles Pascal's message and by this direction, this exciting new direction from the province. And work started right away as my predecessor worked together with the school board folks to help them kind of get their heads around what would be involved in before and after school care. And so work was plugging away, going full steam ahead. Melissa, you were part of that directly. But work was going full steam ahead when, as you all know, there was a lot of lobbying done by the childcare sector to not have school boards operate the before and after school, and that it should be childcare operators. And so it caused us in Waterloo to pause, and because of course we were getting pressure as well. But together we decided that really what was best for children in Waterloo Region, and we really believed in the vision of the seamless day. And I still remember in Charles Pascal's report talking about Jamal's Day, and I don't know if others of you remember Jamal, but it was just a beautiful story of how Jamal would arrive at 7 a.m. and be with the educator that he continued into kindergarten with, and that another educator would come later in the day. He would connect with his teacher and then go into the before and after school, or the after school portion, where all the services and supports that he needs would be there. He wasn't bouncing from person to person. He wasn't going from location to location. And it was a, truly seamless, beautiful day for a young child who deserves that. So the school boards together decided that they did make a bit of a concession at that time, and they said to childcare operators that had childcare centers in schools, if you want to do the before and after school program, you may, but we are going to do the before and after school programs in schools where there was no childcare center. So virtually every childcare program at that time decided they would do the before and after school program. So what we've ended up with in Waterloo region is a hybrid model. And sorry, Melissa, you're going to talk a bit more about that. Excuse me. So the work certainly, there certainly was a lot of work and partnerships that needed to happen as we worked together with our school board partners. And really it was a lot about educating our school board partners about early learning and childcare and the legislation and what that looked like. Not that legislation was going to impact the school boards, but just what early learning and childcare looked like, and really shifting as it was really interesting to watch leaders' notion shift around, moving from the notion of education to care. And that, those leaders would still say today, that was the big shift for them, was understanding that we are here to provide care and to educate. And, as Dr. Jean Clinton says, good education cares and good care educates. And one of the reasons that the school boards, and I didn't mention this, and this was mentioned this morning, was around the recognizing the value of the economy of scale. So our school boards are very large compared to our child care operator. They have access to staffing. They have an infrastructure that they can build upon, and access to everything that is needed to be able to run this program. And so that was a big part of them making the decision that, I think we can do this, and I think we can do it well. As I mentioned, we've provided lots of information to support the school boards, around pedagogy, play-based learning, but we also work with them on, we provided them with a billing system because they had never done fee for service, and so the region supported through using our billing system to help the school boards. They have since moved away from that, and they now have their own billing systems, but that was one thing that helped. And the other piece was, we do use One HSN, the centralized point of access to childcare and wait list, and so we included the school boards on that one list wait list as well.
Thanks, Barb. Barb alluded to our current model, which is our hybrid model. We started in 2010 with 4 locations. We moved into neighborhoods that never had access to childcare, neighborhoods that scored lower on the Neighborhood Economic Security Index scale. We supported 64 children at first, and programs grew and grew and grew. Today, we operate programs in 69 locations. We support over 4,000 children in board-operated extended day programs, and 100% of our students have access to childcare services in schools. So reflecting back on that number in 2010, 9%, now to see 100% of our students were in every school. In 2017, the Education Act was amended to provide provisions for school boards to operate extended day programs. Also in 2017, the ministry released the Education Equity Action Plan. Page 16 of that plan states the Secretariat's commitment to reducing systemic barriers for families in accessing before and after school programs. So every year I work with district school boards who are interested in this model. They want to learn more. More and more school boards we're coming together, early years managers, bi-monthly, sharing solutions, talking about policies and procedures. I know Ottawa's here, Julie, the extended day manager there. Just working together as a network to support one another with implementing this model because it serves families so well. I'm going to review the timelines for the Canada-wide Early Learning Childcare Funding Plan and how that impacted board-operated extended day funding. So in March of 2022, the province signed on to the Canada-wide Early Learning and Childcare Funding Plan. And we learned that board-operated programs would not be eligible for CWELC funding unless we were licensed under the Childcare and Early Years Act. So we quickly came together with our colleagues in Ottawa, Toronto, other regions to discuss what licensing board-operated programs could look like. In April, we received support from senior team to begin the process of licensing our programs. From April to June, we met with our colleagues at the licensing branch, our program advisors, to figure out what licensing school board programs could look like. It meant a change to our ratios from 1 to 15 down to 1 to 13. We had to implement policies and procedures. We had to go through ministry inspections at every site and public health inspections. We were able to open our doors in September, operating as one of the largest licensed childcare providers in southwestern Ontario as a licensed provider, and support families with the reduced fee under the CWELC funding guidelines. So it was a 6-month timeline, and we couldn't have done that without the support of the region, the licensing branch. It was an effort from many departments: human resources, finance, facilities, our communications team. We had a whole campaign around this works to celebrate and to communicate to families that we were going to offer the reduced fee. And we are currently in our 2nd year operating as a licensed program, and families are benefiting from CWELC. Just before we get to some of the pressure points, I wanted to talk about the benefits to children. So we've talked about access, and now through CWELC funding, making childcare more affordable. But I want to take a minute to acknowledge the support that we're providing in terms of our programs being inclusive to children with special education needs. Because we were hearing from families that their children could not participate in school-based programs that were offered in the community due to lack of resources. I think one of the biggest benefits of board-operated programs is that we can draw upon resources from the school. Our special education consultants who support students during the day and work with educator teams also work with our teams that work in before and after school programs. Our staff have access to plans of care for students with medical needs. They're the same plans of care that are used during the day. We're actually embedded in the system now that we have a section of the plan of care that speaks to protocols in before and after school programs. We have students who attend that have vision impairments, and we access the same visual aids that they use during the day. Who access mobility devices, we can approve SIA claims for equipment that are used in before and after school programs to support those students in a seamless way. So there's many benefits, but definitely access, affordability and inclusion, I would say, are the key benefits for board-operated extended day programs. Some of the pressure points, I don't think it will be a surprise, but the expansion of programs requires the ongoing recruitment and retention of designated early childhood educators. And we also staff the programs with educational assistants. We work alongside our childcare operators to align services where possible so that we're operating for the same hours, and our fees are aligned, and we're providing that consistent service. We are hearing from our childcare partners that are moving away from before and after school programs and redirecting the staff, those RECs that they have, to their infant, toddler, preschool programs. So over the last 4 years, we've seen operators pulling out of the locations where they provide before and after care, and then the school board will step in and offer the program for families. The administrative work involved with licensing, we had to license our 69 locations in the childcare licensing system, so all of those administrative pieces, some of you are familiar with, the ongoing inspections. Inspections are going well. We had 4 this week, and the program advisors have provided, great feedback to me around the quality of the relationships that they're seeing, the adult to child interactions, the relationships that educators have with families, the play-based programming that they're seeing. So we've received a lot of support from our program advisors with the licensing branch. I think a big challenge with this program is operating under different sets of rules. So we operate under the Education Act from 9 to 3, and then the Child Care and Early Years Act from 3 to 6. Even though it's the same educators serving the same children in the same environment, and that can be confusing at times for staff.
One of the things that Melissa and I were talking about, though, because I said, and what about the kids? And she said she can't think of an example of where those different rules impact the children, or that it would be anything that they notice. It's more the staff. And we kind of lightly mused that perhaps some of the childcare requirements should be in the core day as well. But we all know who work in the field that there are some discrepancies between what's required during the school day versus in licensed childcare. The other thing I wanted to comment on was, our childcare operators who are still doing before and after school care are really struggling, as I know from conversations with my colleagues across the province. Pretty much every childcare operator who does before and after school is struggling. And a big part of the struggle has to do with the split shifts and hiring people for these little periods of time, and trying to creatively figure out how to hire people for longer hours and so on and so forth. As well, they struggle with, being with children in the morning who then get passed on to, another system and then back into their system, where, a lot of effort has to go into the communications and the sharing of strategies and so on. And sorry, I just lost my train of thought, just completely left me. Thank you. One thing in what I see in the before and after school program run by the school board is none of those staff are part-time, and I'm a advocate for ECEs and working conditions and high quality pay, and I know all of you, or high pay as well, or appropriate pay, sorry, and I know all of you share that with me. But in our school board operated programs, those ECEs are all full-time staff, and they're all making a fair wage, and they all have the benefits that an early childhood educator should have. And so what I see happening in the school system is ECEs finally being treated in a way that really they should be. And now, as Melissa has said, they are struggling with shortages, as we all are, so I don't want to paint too rosy of a picture. The other thing I wanted to comment on is those programs really do struggle, operated by childcare operators. Those are really challenging to keep staffed as well, as and they can't always run at their full capacity because they just don't have the staff. Well, our school board operated programs have not had a wait list at all. So a parent can show up and say, I would like before and after school care, and the school accommodates that care. It's viable in every school, and through economy of scale, it's been able to be viable because at some schools there's just 3 or 4 children that need the care. The largeness of other programs offsets that, and they're able to provide it, and before we know it, they grow. So it's just really, Charles really knew what he was envisioning, and I really, just respect that, and I just see it coming forth in just such a beautiful way. I want to be clear that, that is no criticism of childcare operators for not doing their very best to make it work, but it's not set up to work well. It's the structure of it that doesn't work. And, I think what we found is the structure and has worked, and the commitment of our school boards to families and for equity of children has really prevailed. And it was interesting when we found out they had to be licensed. We all advocated, oh, please don't make us licensed, blah, blah, blah. We, called the ministry, we called everybody we could think of, and it became really clear they were going to have to get licensed. And both school boards said, well, then we get licensed. We can't let these kids down, because they knew how much, they have 4,000. Well, the public board has 4,000. I think the Catholic board has about 1,600 to 2,000. Yeah. So that's lots of little and medium-sized children.
Yes.
So, yeah. So, it's been quite a journey. Oh, that is the other thing I do want to describe. I have the privilege of seeing these programs in action, and I have to say, I do see a difference in the seamless day. You know, these children who, transition, think of a child with anxiety coming into a program in the morning with an early childhood educator that then accompanies that child into his classroom in the morning where he enjoys his day together and he makes that transition into, and then moves out of the classroom with the early childhood educator who he's been with for the other half of the day, compared to when an operator is trying to operate and doing their very best. But that child is making a hard transition, which is what Pascal was telling us not to do to kids. And I think we would all agree is, they arrive at 7 in their before program and then they get handed off to somebody else, and with, really needing to make an effort around communication and then back out of that program into back into their original program is really disruptive for children, let alone kids who might struggle with some diverse needs.
Absolutely. Thanks, Barb.
To go watch it. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Melia Dirk, and I am the District Vice Principal of Early Learning and Childcare for School District 53, Okanagan, Similkameen, and British Columbia. We are a small rural district with approximately 2,300 students K-12. I have the privilege to live, work, play, and learn on the unceded, ancestral, traditional territory of the Okanagan people. We began Seamless Day Kindergarten as a pilot 5 years ago in one of our school districts with one program. This program had 12 licensed spaces available for before and after school care. Fast forward to today, where we now have 2 programs in our district with 90 spaces. Seamless Day Kindergarten has since multiplied to 45 licensed programs throughout the province of British Columbia since the pilot. It is amazing for children, families, and the community. I am excited to share a journey and hopes that might inspire you. Back in 2019, the superintendent and I were approached by Maureen Dockendorf, a representative from the Ministry of Education, to have a look at a video about having before and after school programming in a kindergarten classroom. That video, which was from the Waterloo School District, showcased how children were welcomed into the classroom before school by an early childhood educator, transitioned into the school day with the same ECE, and had an additional ECE for the after-school portion of the day. Can you imagine what can happen when a child knows there are 2 additional loving adults who care about them in the school? The continuity of care and the continuity of learning was exemplified in this example. The outcomes for children from having this type of care was something we knew our community would benefit from. Transitions for children in kindergarten would be seamless. We were wondering, would we be able to provide those same supports for children in our small rural communities? We decided we needed to witness this firsthand and embarked on a road trip. What we saw was amazing. The care the children were receiving in the programs filled our hearts. We knew we could bring this to our community, and the planning began. First, we did a survey to see what the family's needs were. We soon realized that the desire was there, and we needed to provide the opportunity. We knew how we could change outcomes for children with this program, so we decided to give it a shot. How were we able to make it so successful? Oops. There we go. The answer to this question is using a team approach. The moment I happily agreed to have 2 early childhood educators in my homeroom, I knew a team approach was the only way to go. Within this team approach, all team members are equal. There wasn't a hierarchy. The philosophy was made clear to the students and families in our classroom. The classroom turned from my homeroom to our homeroom. The second thing I wanted to do is meet with the team members involved to share our expectations of both ourselves and the children. We needed to share philosophies and create a shared vision of what we wanted to achieve in our learning community. We agreed all children should be seen as capable and full of potential. Children should be celebrated as strong, competent in their uniqueness, and should have a secure sense of belonging. With this, our shared vision was formed. Next, the planning began. We now had this amazing team, and we needed to make sure the children in the classroom benefited from this collaboration. How could we achieve this? First, we should start with our strengths and passion areas. My thinking was this: if each of us led in our areas of passion, we would definitely be successful in creating a joyful learning environment. I also realized that as a classroom teacher, I would have to give up some areas of control that typically fall on me and let others lead. So each educator shared their area of passion. My passion is literacy, so I was going to lead the literacy activities. The morning ECE loved movement breaks and social emotional learning and would lead in those areas. The afternoon ECE was a scout leader and loved the outdoors. Full disclosure, I'm not really an outdoorsy type of person, but I thought, you know what, I need to follow through and let her lead and support her in her passion areas. So I borrowed a pair of my daughter's mud boots and off we went. And I also must say that that was the most wonderful learning experience that both myself and the children had. The things that we learned on our hikes and exploring in the woods was just something that I didn't even know could exist in a classroom. The afternoon ECE was able to bring all content areas to our outdoor learning days, and there was an entry point for all students. Some children who struggled inside the classroom were leaders on our outdoor day. When the ECEs were leading, both inside and outside of the school building, I was able to view the children with a different perspective. I was noticing things I hadn't in the past: engagement level, social emotional level, academic level. All three of us felt like we were valued for what we brought to the classroom. We were able to share our passions with the children and had many joyful, fun-filled days together. Collaborative planning time together in the week was also very important to me. There was not any additional time given, so much to the dismay of other teachers in the province, I used my prep time to do this. However, I knew this time collaborating and sharing ideas was so valuable. This was a time for us to check in with each other and talk about some of the things that were happening with the children in our classroom. What things were we noticing? Is there something we were wondering about? Where should we go with our learning? A lot of times, somebody would say, I have an idea, and the other two would be able to expand on the idea or help plan and prep. The knowledge and planning shared at these meetings benefited all children in the classroom, and for the first time in my teaching career, I didn't feel like I was on an island planning on my own. The knowledge the ECEs brought to the session was amazing. I learned so much about early years because of them. Which brings me to joint professional learning. It didn't seem fair that I had all of this wonderful knowledge in my room and other primary teachers did not. This is how our community of practice originated. Our community of practice includes primary teachers, community early childhood educators, Strong Start facilitators, and Seamless Day Kindergarten early childhood educators. We gather throughout the year to discuss, share, and debate the values we hold about knowledge, about education, and how to live well together in ways that are respectful, local, and meaningful. Since its inception, we have members from our neighboring communities attend as well. At these gatherings, we have rich conversations around the early learning framework and ask ourselves, is our planning aligned with the early learning framework? How can we provide opportunities for the children to go deeper with their learning? Are we providing opportunities for children to show their learning in a variety of ways? And are we using pedagogical narration to make learning visible? The rich sharing of process and philosophies allow for growth in knowledge and sharing of ideas that each participant can take back to their own setting. Shared spaces. If you want to send most primary teachers into a state of panic, just mention shared spaces. It is definitely not a popular idea because, let's face it, most primary teachers hold tight to the control over the resources and spaces, and having that sanctuary become a shared one puts the nerves on high alert. However, I did not see it that way. If the ECEs were part of the education team and witnessed the joyful experiences the children had inside the school day, they would be more respectful of the space outside of the school day. They have ownership in the classroom and materials just as much as the teacher. Look at the Rangoli photos. These are in the Seamless Day Kindergarten classroom, and the children are working on this during class time. Once the after-school care children came into the room, because the children come from a variety of other classrooms, the ECE explained the work, effort, love, and attention that kindergarten children were putting into these beautiful rangolis, and how they would be sad if they got ruined. That's all it took. The rangolis ended up absolutely amazing, and not one piece of rice was moved by the after-school group. What about teachers having time in their classrooms alone? This is understandable. All it takes is a quick conversation and a bit of problem solving. In some sites, the before ECE will take the children either outside or to the gym 45 minutes before the bell rings so the teacher has that time alone in the classroom. Some sites have their after-school children meet outside for the first 30 to 40 minutes so teachers can have that time in their classroom alone at the end of the day. Each Seamless Day Kindergarten site has the flexibility to make the timing work for them. Simple conversation and being respectful of each other allow this challenge to become a non-issue. Who is welcome at Seamless Day Kindergarten? Any child who is 5 by December 31st. That is the only requirement. The children receive the same quality of care and respect in the after-school program as they do during the school day. The way the children are spoken to is the same. The expectations are the same. The loving adult is the same. Nothing is a surprise to the children. In our program, we welcome children from kindergarten to grade 5. If families need the service, we provide it for them, which is why we have expanded so much. Some people wondered if having the children in the same space before school, during school, and after school was going to be an issue. They questioned, what about room fatigue? What about toy fatigue? In reality, the exact opposite is true. Children like knowing where materials are and feel at home in the space. Communication is key to having a successful program. If a parent or guardian drops off the child for the before-school program and has important information or a message for the classroom teacher, the parent knows they can share this information with the ECE, and they will tell the other team members, so all team members know if something is going on with a child. The continuity of care is probably the most important aspect of the program. We had an example a few weeks ago where a child came into the program having a really rough morning. The ECE was able to support the child, help him self-regulate, and to start turning his day around. The ECE sent a message to the classroom teacher saying he had a tough morning and perhaps needed more time than usual and extra understanding that day. Another example is when a grade 4 student in the program was having a rough go of it. The ECE met with the classroom teacher and asked what strategies she used if the child was having a difficult time. The ECE began using the same strategy in after-school care, and it was more successful for that child than ever before. Again, those conversations between the professionals and ensuring everyone has the same expectations can create continuity for the child, and that child will be successful. In our experience, the same conversations are not taking place with third-party providers because of confidentiality concerns. The continuity of learning extends from the school day into the after-school care portion. The ECE has time in her day to touch base with the other teachers in the building. For instance, if a grade 2 student needs extra support with literacy, the teacher will provide this information to the ECE so she is able to provide supports in the after-school program. The ECE plans and extends ideas with the children she cares for in the program as well. A few children were very interested in dinosaurs, so the educator and children embarked on an inquiry project about dinosaurs. Another group of children were interested in building structures, so they did an inquiry on architecture. Because the ECE is highly trained, she can plan, implement, and differentiate based on children's interest, so all children are engaged and have a chance to share their interests and passions as a group. Seamless Day Kindergarten has been the catalyst for expanding spaces on school grounds in British Columbia. To date, Seamless Day Kindergarten has doubled the amount of school-age care opportunities provided on school grounds. The school district has governance over the program, which allows for high-quality programming. We operate off of the school district infrastructure, which allows us to accommodate more children. In my school, we went from using 1 classroom to 4 classrooms to accommodate the number of children we have. The families who started with us in 2019 have continued with us. They do not want to have to look for new childcare options, which are few and far between in our smaller communities, or have their children to go home alone or to a neighbor's house after school. What is the ripple effect for the ECEs? They are now an integral part of the school community and are valued and respected for their knowledge and expertise. Seamless Day Kindergarten has raised the professionalism of ECEs in our province. What is the ripple effect for families? Families express their gratitude every day. They know they can go off to work and their child is being cared for and treated with respect, love, and grace from the minute they drop them off until pickup. No more worrying about where their child is going at the end of the day. Less stress for families makes for happier homes. Thank you for the opportunity to share our journey. I hope that this has not been only informative, but inspires you to bring this valuable and rich program to the children and families in your communities. So on the slide is our contact information. Please feel free to either email myself or Elena Smith, the morning ECE of one of our Seamless Day Kindergarten programs. Elena was also a participant in Leading Change with ECE BC and has created or documented our journey of Seamless Day Kindergarten in this book. I only have 5 of them, but if you message her on Instagram, she will send you a PDF of this, and it's just our experience. So thank you very much for your time today. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zeba Ahmad, and I am from the Saskatoon Public Schools Foundation. So we are the charitable arm to Saskatoon Public School Division. It is the largest division in the province, about 25,000 students, I'd say. I'd like to think it's sort of the center where things do happen in Saskatchewan and when it comes to education. And as a foundation, you don't see foundations attached to the education sector. I'm sure many of you are familiar with hospitals or community foundations. So this has been a challenge and an opportunity for us to be able to advocate for education, to engage teachers and staff and parents and governments on the importance, especially in the investment in the early years. So I just wanted to show and give thanks to, it's a volunteer board. It's, I would like to say, one of the best boards I've ever seen. My volunteer roles have always been on boards, and I was the volunteer board chair, and then went into a management role 5 years ago with this foundation because I just so strongly believe, especially in Saskatchewan, there's not enough attention on the early years and how much kids benefit from that. But we do have 2 trustees and 2 division superintendents, well, the director of education on the board. So it is the best relationship I've ever seen between a foundation and the region or the authority, whatever it is. It has been really fantastic. We have a staff. We used to be, just a couple of years ago, 1.5. We are now 4 staff members. I like to say we're 4 crazy-ass women who get a lot of shit done, as you'll see. So it's become a bit of a tagline, actually, and we're pretty proud of it. So anyways, you know, it's been a great opportunity in Saskatchewan to talk about early years and that investment in our young kids. So the foundation board many years ago started to ask the question to the division, well, what can we do? And I mean, this is your community. These are your business leaders, your other community leaders. What can we do to make a difference? And it was things like this, and this is outdated, I know, but the reality is Saskatchewan does not have the best track record. And when it comes to high school graduation and grade 3 reading and grade 3, and we're always very conscious of making sure that we say this is not because of teachers not doing a good job. This is not because parents and kids don't want. There are circumstances within many of our families. We do have a lot of kids going back and forth between their community reserves, their First Nations, coming back and forth into the city. And so we just wanted to make sure that we're celebrating the work, but also recognizing that there were some needs. And that's what this board was challenging the division. And as we were having the conversation, they kept talking about the early years. Well, we don't have full-day kindergarten anymore, which there are still a lot of people, the rest of the country, who don't realize that. We used to have full-day kindergarten. The last jurisdiction was Saskatoon Public, and that stopped in 2011. And since then, literacy has dropped 10% overall. And that's pre-pandemic numbers. So CEAP is an old term. It's the Community Education Action Plan schools. So that's our community schools, core schools, whatever term you use. And of course, marginalized kids, mostly First Nations, New Canadians, kids and parents who don't have a voice. And we as the foundation feel that that's an opportunity that we have to be able to share, some of the challenges and the opportunities. So literacy has dropped significantly in Saskatchewan. And sometimes I say, and I've said this to the government, to the premier, I said, we're the birthplace of universal health care in Saskatchewan. Why can we not aspire to be the best when it comes to literacy in this country as well? So I don't know if that's going to resonate, but we're trying. So a few years ago, it was during the pandemic, we launched Early Learning Equal Start. And this is a $20 million campaign. So one of the comments when we would meet with government would be, well, show us the data. We all know that early years investment will impact grade 3 reading, which will impact graduation. But it was always show us the numbers. So we actually launched a campaign, a $20 million campaign, 5-year initiative with full-day pre-K, so that's ages 4, full-day kindergarten, our tutor program, which was our flagship program, and then our summer reading camp. And it was our commitment to focus on those community schools and increase grade 3 reading to over 80%. We were very fortunate and are very fortunate to have the support of one of our donors who provided the $10 million beginning of that campaign. And with a gift like that, we were able to aspire. We might have been able to be in a couple of schools, but we were able to actually get to serve all those community schools, and they continue to be very supportive. And I think what's important through all of this and this opportunity, Early Learning Equal Start, is the advocacy and the awareness that we have been able to bring into Saskatchewan and into Saskatoon. So even though we're Saskatoon Public Schools Foundation, everything that we do from an advocacy perspective is for the public system, Catholic system, urban, rural, and the government knows that, and all the divisions know that. So that is sort of an offshoot, but I just have a really pushy board that makes me do a lot of work. So that's what we're doing. Now though, and this is the unique thing about a foundation as well, and how we've gotten involved with the early years within Saskatchewan, is this past spring, the division actually came to us and said, the best use of donor dollars is to expand full-day kindergarten. And which is what we have done. We've doubled our full-day kindergarten programs. We've expanded our tutor program, which is one-on-one tutoring that we've had for over 10 years. And those are retired master teachers, all going back into the schools to support students who are just below rating level. And the data that we have from that, when it started over 10 years ago, that 100% of the kids, the ones that we have found or we can track, are all on the way to an on-time high school graduation. So this is some of the information that we share with government, and then we have our summer reading camp. We have raised over $17 million, and we plan to complete the campaign by the spring of 2024. Just a couple of more million to go, and I'm pretty hopeful about that. And so that is funding these initiatives till 2026. And why did we change it? And you would all know this, but we know that full-day programming is better than half-day programming. Kids benefit, and attendance goes up. So that was how we were able to shift our funding. And so with that though, and why are we funding full day kindergarten? We fundamentally believe this is the province's responsibility. We have had many, many discussions. It started a couple of years ago with the provincial government. We used to fund it, we don't fund it, literacy's dropping. You know, there are kids who are not graduating. And that's just, it's sad. And we have quite a robust economy. We do not have the workforce, especially in the next 10 years. So the economic argument for us can be very significant. And so we've been talking to them. They'll talk about, well, we can't afford it. And we have challenged them. We as a foundation are funding teachers. And we know that incrementally, if they were just to go to Regina, Saskatoon, Prince Albert, North Battleford, our largest urban centers, focus on core communities, it's an incremental cost of $4 million, which is really a rounding error, for any budget. So So I wish this was next week, because I'm meeting with the Minister of Education and Deputy Minister on Tuesday. So the fact that we have both of them in the same room is hopeful. It started out with the former Minister of Education ignoring us to the point where he goes, "Would you stop texting the Premier every time I don't answer?" And this is no word of a lie. The board that on the foundation, some of the relationships that we have are, we're very fortunate. And so we're able to do some of our back channels. So this is that advocacy. I don't want to say lobby, because we're not a lobby group. But we are trying to focus on getting the government to come back to supporting full day, everyday kindergarten. And one thing that we did do at the end of June of this year is sort of have a quasi-government relations committee. We get together, usually over wine, and discuss how do we move the needle in Saskatchewan. It's kind of what happens in Saskatchewan, and probably everywhere, but it's funner that way. How do people even care? We obviously are a small province, rural, quite a significant rural influence on government, on a lot that goes on. This is a marginalized, primarily urban issue. Are people listening? But what was interesting, so I have a whole slew of slides. We actually conducted a study. And what was surprising, well, it wasn't surprising, was, of course, if you do a study, in the beginning you don't give them any information, then you sort of share some pieces about the importance of grade 3 reading and how it correlates to full day or to high school graduation. The numbers obviously speak for themselves, that over 80% of Saskatchewan residents support publicly funded full day kindergarten. So that's the re-implementation. So we've shared this with our provincial government, we've shared it with the deputy minister and other actually jurisdictions as well. And there's a whole bunch of slides, and it was also interesting because the older segment of the population had the least interest in it, but once you inform them of the benefits of full day, everyday kindergarten, how it relates to grade 3 reading, how that then correlates to high school graduation, that was actually where you saw the most significant jump in support. And why is all of this important for us right now? Is we are going into an election year. There will be an election in the fall. This government is pretty secure, but things might shift a bit. It would not shift completely, but it's important for people to speak to this. Other divisions, grassroots, parents. Now that we've expanded full day kindergarten in Saskatoon, that's all you hear. It's the amount of parents talking about it. Actually, last week in the office, we had this pregnant lady come in to our office, so the foundation office, so even awareness that it's not a government-funded thing, and she goes, "Can I put my child on a waiting list?" She's pregnant, so there's a few years yet. But through all of the work that we're doing as a foundation, a foundation is an opportunity for the good news stories, for the advocacy without, the division stays separate. So if we push and use our leverage as our relationships, they're still protected. They need to do what they do. They're the teachers. They know what they're doing. This is what we can do. This is how we can build awareness, and we can advocate with government. So the focus right now is getting full-day kindergarten funded in Saskatchewan. Like I said, maybe Tuesday we'll hear something. There'll be a budget in March and an election in November. So we have a whole billboard campaign, I call it, that's starting up in January as well, TV commercials and everything. Our next piece, and I'll just take for my last moment here, hopefully full-day kindergarten will be funded. The next piece that relates to so much of what we're talking about here today is the pre-K, so the ages 4. We know, especially in some of these communities where this is their safest place, this is their constant, this is nutrition, this is building community for them with other kids. We are hoping that we can work with the federal government on the $10 a day daycare opportunity. And so I've already had conversations with the province on that as well. Actually, the Premier himself has said, run with it, we'll support you in however you need to do that. So even just to start to build that awareness within Ottawa, have a presentation in February with our Saskatchewan senators and some other ones who are also interested in this area. So we're trying to, we're sort of different in that we're a foundation, but we're trying to bring awareness to education, celebrate education, and help hopefully galvanize people in Saskatchewan to start making this a priority. I always say that, we were one of the only provinces that didn't have a children's hospital, and if it wasn't for the foundation, and it then became a political issue, and if that had not happened, we would not have a children's hospital today. So the value of a foundation supporting the most critical aspect of a successful society being education and our youngest learners. So I think that might be it. Thank you.
We have time for a couple of questions from the floor. I just want to thank our panelists. I really appreciated your attention to how seamless day programs make a difference in children's lives in terms of reducing the number of transitions, supporting kids who have special needs, talking about the continuum of learning, right? And we're got all our fingers crossed and really appreciate Zeba's honesty about how things have moved forward in Saskatchewan as well. So looking forward to some positive news after your Tuesday discussions. Jill has to head out in 2 minutes. She's got a celebration in Halifax. I'm like, okay. Her private helicopter is going to land in a minute. Yeah, well, you've got important friends. But I'll just ask the first question because I'm curious about how the teachers, their communities are responding to the presence in a pretty significant way of early childhood educators in the school. I think that what you have, reiterated for us is that the public delivery of early learning and childcare is great for kids and families, but it's also creating great jobs for early childhood educators, and that is fundamental to our work at the Atkinson Center going forward. So I'm curious about how teachers are responding to ECEs as part of your programming.
Seamless Day Kindergarten isn't for everybody. It isn't for every teacher. Some teachers do not want to share their classroom no matter what you bring to them, no matter what expertise and knowledge the ECEs bring to the table. They're just like, this is my classroom, I'm closing the door, no one's coming in. And we have to respect that, because if we would put a program in their room, it's not going to be successful in our experience. So the teachers who are interested in having ECEs and learning from ECEs and joining a community of practice to learn, to share in what the ECE's knowledge is, has been really well received. But you have, it's teacher choice.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
We've seen a really broad difference between teachers from one end to the other. We have teachers that are so grateful and understand early learning. And we actually, during our first evaluation of early year centers, we had one teacher who cried, and she said, I'm seeing children now that know how to hold a crayon, that know how to use a glue stick now, that know how to turn the pages of a book. She said, it's been years since I've seen a group of children that all know how to do that. Like, that's real stories. And then we've seen the other side, where teachers are expecting that we're doing the work of the primary teacher. So, well, how come they don't know how to write their name? How come they don't know how to tie their shoes? I thought that's what pre-primary was for. And so we've sold pre-primary as this is their, the ECE's job is to give the children the best experience they have to be the best 4-year-old they can be. And it's not about it's not about taking away some of the tasks that are that of the primary curriculum. So we've seen a really broad spectrum, and again, I think that with the movement to the public school branch and with principals taking over the supervision of the staff, I think it won't be easy, but I think we'll start to see more embracing and understanding of early learning and how it does help prepare children, but it doesn't mean, it takes away some of the requirements and responsibilities of the primary teacher.
Thank you. Melissa, do you want to add?
We've run into challenges around the shared space and before and after school programs and access to, teachers wanting access to that space. What we have done as one solution is part of our parent fee goes back to equipping play materials for the spaces that are used. And so a percentage of funds goes back to the school, and the school administrator will meet with the classroom teacher and the RECE to look at what materials they want to purchase to replenish their classroom environment, and that's been really helpful.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions from the floor? Yes, go ahead.
So this is very much an operational question, to be honest with you, but I'm very, very interested in receiving this day because as the early years lead for my board, there are a number of wait lists that our third-party providers are just not able to lessen because of lack of staff. So in moving towards the seamless day as I'm presenting, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is maybe the solution for us, which would be fantastic. But in a small school, one kindergarten classroom, I could see the DECE coming in the morning, and then a second DECE for the afternoon. But then in a school, one of mine, for example, has 7 kindergarten classrooms. So would it be that we would be offering that program and every single DECE in each of those kindergarten classrooms would be available in the morning and a second one for the afternoon to ensure we have that consistency and seamless day for each individual kindergarten class? Just your thoughts on that.
Okay. My thoughts, it is the solution. And let's connect for sure. We'll share my contact information. But what you're going to start with is viability survey to families. So you're going to start with a registration in January to assess the needs for care for the fall. You'll start likely in one classroom, offering care for 26, and it will grow over the years, and eventually you may be in 4 or 5 of your 7 classrooms. So you need to determine viability through, and we use an online platform in our region called 1HSN. Registration opens mid-January. Parents have to indicate their intent to enroll in before and after care, and that gives us the numbers for our fall staffing timelines. So you probably have fall staffing timelines too through your human resource department. So we know by April the number of positions required for before and after care. But let's connect for sure.
Thanks, Melissa.
And sorry, can I just add to that? Even though Seamless Day Kindergarten was in my classroom, there was another kindergarten classroom down the hall, and so some of her students joined us after school. It wasn't the same classroom per se, but those students needed care, and so the ECE would spend time, the afternoon ECE would spend time in her classroom and my classroom, and we did lots of things together. So the children still felt like they knew that BCE and, you know, they were, you know, part are being cared for by them.
Thank you. Carrie.
Thank you very much for your presentations. I wanted to ask, I know that you had in Waterloo, I know that you had the operators who are already in the school continue to operate the program. But didn't you also do something around the 8 to 12s, that you had a youth program that you conceded to the community operators? I just wanted to know what the status of those programs are now.
So all of those programs have closed over the years, and the board now runs JK to grade 6. So we run programs for 4-year-olds right up to 12-year-olds. When we initially piloted the program, we were running just for extended day, JK to grade 2. And then families, you know, were starting grade 3 saying, we need care, so we just now run right to grade 6.
So anybody above the age 12 is hanging out at the local bowling alley, pinball machine alley, because that's what I'm engaged in. Any other questions from the floor? Okay. It is 10 after 2, a stretch break, whatever you need to do for 10 minutes, and then we'll return to the next panel that Christine McLean is going to moderate. Thank you very much.